Welcome to the Long Range Pursuit Podcast, presented by Gunwerks, where we learn about and share long-range shooting techniques, science, and gear.
Well, welcome to another episode of the Long Range Pursuit Podcast, and today we're going to do something we haven't done in a while, our Instructor's Corner. And this is Brian, and I'm here with Justin Frey, and Justin is the newest member of our Long Range University team. So, Justin, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Excited to be here with you. Looking back, I've listened to some of these before I knew you, and so it's cool to actually be sitting here with you now. Like Brian said, I'm the newest member to the Long Range University team as of last summer, and kind of stepped into a instructor role where I still had a lot to learn from you when I did, but used my background of growing up hunting and fishing and all the stuff I've done in the back to put those two and two together, and it's been great. I've learned a lot from you, had a lot of fun doing it, and had a really cool fall that I think when we get to talking about it kind of shows the values of some of the training we do and some of the equipment we use and things like that. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and Justin's got a really unique background, and on the surface or on the first glance, it's not real related to the hunting and the shooting side of it, but there's so many commonalities, and I find it fascinating because it's like what I did for a hobby, he did for a living, and we're probably like what he did for a hobby, I did for a living.
Yeah. I think, you're right. I think I was probably in my spare time studying what you were doing for a living, and vice versa. You were probably looking at what I was doing for a living in your spare time. But what Brian's talking about is, I did grow up hunting and fishing, like I said. All my uncles and cousins hunt, so I was around guns when I was a kid, whether it was 22 or 20 gauge or whatever, and kind of stepped away from it for a little while when I was in school and pursuing downhill mountain bike racing, which led me to a major chunk of my career doing field testing and product development for some pretty major, like industry leading companies in the mountain bike world. And while, like Brian said, at first glance, that might not seem like it crosses over to long-range shooting. You could very easily argue that it does, because a major responsibility I had in both those roles during product development was field testing, and specifically single variable field testing. And if you think about like breaking down the shot process, when we're talking long-range shooting, the goal is to eliminate any variable you can from that process to make sure that we're more consistent. And the variables that we can't eliminate, we want to figure out how to control them or calculate for them.
Yeah.
And so trying to just, at the end of the day, be as consistent as possible. And it does. I think it crosses over pretty well. And then add in a touch of OCD, and here we are.
Like Justin's extremely analytical about everything he does, and I think it's really interesting to talk to Justin as well, because, in my mind, Justin, could easily be any one of a number of very experienced hunters and shooters who kind of make that transition to a Gunwerks product or to the Revic product line, after having been exposed to, a lot of the other products in the industry. So it's been kind of cool to have a hunting season with Justin. And, basically he's got this, one of our demo guns is this Clymr 6.5 PRC that, I think he's adopted it. I'm not sure if we're ever going to get it back or not. But just walking him, going through his processes and, learning stuff, and just that very analytical mindset, he's a freaking killer.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, it does take a lot to, I would say, earn your way into my quiver of gear that I use. I'm highly particular about everything I take into the field. I want to know it inside and out, and I want to know at the end of the day that I'm the only variable really involved. So I have to trust my gear 100%. And from the second I picked up that 6.5 PRC Clymr you mentioned, I've absolutely fallen in love with it. And I really don't want to hunt with anything else ever again, or for the foreseeable future.
Except maybe a 7 PRC version.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
I have seen yours put down some pretty awesome results, so you might have me there.
We're just going to kind of talk about our hunting seasons respectively this year, and some of the new products that we used. We get the benefit of using the new products when they come out, and we learn some lessons from them. It kind of sometimes changes our way of thinking, and Justin's kind of an equal opportunity killer, so he is probably 10 times the archery elk hunter that I could ever hope to be. So although maybe not this year, but he certainly put the time in.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go that far this year, but yeah, I do love archery elk more than pretty much anything. Obviously I like it all, and I really enjoy the rifle hunting, but just something about a bull screaming his head off in September really gets me fired up. And while I didn't get to quite have the year that I usually have this year in September, it was still something I learned from, and I had some opportunities that came real close to like actually turning into shot opportunities during the first couple days of the season. And one of them was really cool. We found a bull. I was with a buddy opening day, and literally right at first light, a mile from the truck, we found a bull. And because I was the one that spotted him, my buddy dropped back to call and see if we could bring him over. And I thought I was about to get a shot on a monster at first light on opening morning. Anyway, I think he was a smart old big bull and kind of circled us to figure out what was going on when he didn't see the cow he thought he should see. And then we never saw him again. Fast forward a couple days, and I'm by myself, and had another opportunity on a bull that had been just screaming his head off all morning. And I worked my way up this ridge and hadn't heard him in a few minutes, so I just paused when I got to the top of the ridge. And I knew going in he was in a pretty killable area. I had been in there the day before. I kind of felt comfortable with where I was going in and how I was getting in there, and stood up on this ridge, had the wind, I guess thermals at that point in the morning, in my favor, and wasn't sure if he was still there. And then he just sounded off, and he was probably 40 yards down the ridge from me. Man. And that just shakes your soul that time of year and early in the morning like that. And I didn't end up getting a shot on him, but he was a good one, and it was a cool opportunity. And yeah, came back to work, went back out a couple other times, didn't really get into much. Came across an opportunity on a mule deer, so I was hunting just general elk tags, general deer tags, and hiked. I was in a general area, so I knew I had to like get away from the roads and put some effort in. And I get up in this basin, and there was some elk sign, but I didn't feel like there was much activity in the past couple of days. Yeah. And I just happened to peek out of this timber and notice some 2 bedded mule deer bucks down to my right. And I don't think they caught me, but I think the thermals put them onto me. And so they stood up and kind of walked off. And I just watched them, and I said, well, if there's no elk here and there's a mule deer and I got a deer tag in my pocket.
Like I said, equal opportunity killer.
We're going to see what we can do here. So I kind of watched them do their thing. And like I said, they didn't blow out because they didn't see me, or I didn't really like spook them, but they knew something was up. So they kind of walked up on the hill and decided to like cross the hill and start feeding back down. And so then I just kind of like triangulated them, and I said, well, if they keep doing what I think they're going to do, and I can get over to these trees without them seeing me, like it might come together. So I waited till they had their heads back down and were feeding back down the mountain, and made a move over to a tree clump I had picked out and kind of just waited it out for a bit. And I didn't see them, so I moved to the next tree clump, and sure enough, that's all it took. I caught a leg moving through the timber, and basically had one shooting lane for it to come together. So I arranged that shooting lane, and I knew if they came through there, it was game on. And a few minutes later, here comes the deer. There was a big one and a small one, and the big one luckily was first, and he broke out into that shooting lane. What I didn't realize when I ranged the shooting lane was there was a branch about 2/3 of the way down the shooting lane. So as soon as he came out, I was already at full draw, but then I realized that my pin was on this branch, so I had to wait for him to take another step before I could let it go. And he cleared the branch, shot broke, and I heard the impact, and he didn't go far at all. So
I think that's just that translates so well into any type of hunting, though. Yeah. Just having that presence of mind to like shift your plan a little bit. Yeah. And just recognize that, this isn't going to be right. I got to do this. Yeah. And it's just that just comes from experience, I think, and time in the woods and time hunting.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of it comes from heartbreak for guys too, if they're really honest. Like we've all made mistakes that, help you progress as a hunter and you learn from, and you make a bad mistake once. You don't make it again.
No, I can think of a few.
Yeah, they don't settle well with most guys like us. So,
no.
Yeah, it was pretty cool how it came together. I honestly that morning had no expectations of shooting a deer. Yeah. I thought maybe I'd see some elk, and maybe I'd have to decide if I was going to shoot a cow versus a like smaller bull or something. But it never crossed my mind that I'd be walking off the mountain a few hours later with a buck on my back. So
that's pretty cool. About the only downside is that for the next 2 months while I was going deer hunting, you're like, man, I don't have a tag anymore.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah. I was a little jealous when rifle season came around and you got to go chase some monster bucks that were migrating.
I don't know if I call them monsters, but
next year we'll team up on that.
Yeah. So that, you kind of adopted that Clymr, 6.5 PRC, and I just watched you every day. Like, you were very disciplined about putting your time in with that gun. Maybe tell the listeners a little bit about kind of how you took that gun and in the period of, like, I don't know, a couple weeks or a month, built your confidence in that gun to where you're taking that out hunting and killing stuff with it.
Yeah, I'd seen it on the shelf in the demo rack over at the Long Range University range there, and hadn't really thought much of it. Like lighter weight guns, honestly, in my past have never really treated me that well. So I've always chose like heavier weight guns just because they're more shootable and all the things that we train on, like being able to spot your own impact and just like follow up shots and all that stuff. So I kind of didn't give it a second thought when I first saw it sitting there. It was the last gun in our demo fleet that I shot, I believe. And I didn't even know it was Chambered 6.5 PRC, which is what I hunt with anyway.
Yeah.
But when I found that out, I was like, oh, pull it off the shelf and shoot it, And as soon as I did, I was like, whoa, I had my eyes open. I'm like, this is the best shooting, lightest weight rifle I've ever shot. And so then my wheels got turning. I was like, I know how much effort it takes to get an elk on the ground and get a deer on the ground during rifle season. And I knew my wife had a good elk tag, and I knew I was going to be putting miles in and carrying a rifle a lot this fall. And as much as I hate to say it, like, weight matters. And I carry a lot of gear with me because I always want to be prepared for whatever we get into. And I don't want to be the guy that like gets to the midday and is like, oh, I got to go back to the truck. If you're on game, you're on game and you want to keep going. So I was starting to think of all the advantages that just the weight of the rifle system would present to me over the course of the season. And then the fact that it shot so well really just like solidified the deal.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, I started like slowly working into it and building some profiles and like stretching it out further. And then I would come in and I would take a cold bore with it. And Brian and I have talked about this. And this goes back to my archery roots. Like, especially the month before season, I will get up in the morning and I'll take one shot with my bow. And currently at my range at home, it's 71 yards and it's with a broadhead. And if that shot's good, I can shoot more. If that shot's not a good shot, whether it's how it broke or how it felt or where it hit, I won't shoot anymore. And I'll have to think about that all day long.
It's such an interesting concept, and it's, and I learned from that because that's kind of opposite mine. And it's kind of opposite what a lot of people would naturally do. Like, most people would shoot one shot, and if it's good, they're like, oh, I'm good. And they'll walk away.
Yeah.
And with me, before talking to you, if my first shot wasn't good, I'd be like, well, I need to figure out how to fix that.
Yeah.
So I'd shoot some more to try to fix it. But I like the mental side of what you're talking about, where it's like, you get this one shot, and if you screw it up, you get to think about it all day.
Yeah. And that's hard.
Yeah.
I think anybody that's been successful in the woods, especially with a bow, it takes a lot to get to that success.
Yeah.
And you might work your butt off all fall, and you've worked all year, and you might have 3 seconds in your whole season to where you capitalize on that one shot opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's why I went down that like path a couple years ago of like just training myself, like, this is the only shot you get.
Yeah.
And so it does transfer over to the rifle, and I think, like you said, a lot of guys don't do that. I've seen guys at the rifle range getting ready in the fall before, like, make a first shot, it's not on, then they start chasing zero, then they start and they get frustrated and they're just ripping through ammo and they're not gaining confidence.
No, they are not.
Meanwhile,
they're just flinching harder and harder.
Yeah. Meanwhile, opening day is getting closer and closer. And so I try to have like a little different perspective on that, and it transfers over well because when it works, it just builds your confidence.
Yep.
And I just did the exact same thing I do with my bows with that Clymr. And over the course of about a month, 5 weeks, something like that, before my wife's rifle tag opened, I just started doing cold bores every other day or every couple of days when we had a chance in the morning.
And those cold bores, what distance were you shooting those at?
Well, I built up a little bit.
Yeah.
My favorite starting was like 525. There's a real small target we have at 525, and I kind of know like my wife's comfort range, and so I was kind of thinking of her more for the first hunter with the gun. And so I was working at the 525 range, and it just kept hammering. Like, my shot would hit, and a couple days later I'd take another cold bore, and it would literally hit the same spot.
Yeah, he had this little, I mean, it's a bear target, but it's really about the size of a big raccoon.
Yeah.
At a 525, and that was kind of his target. You just see his cold bore group. It didn't really grow.
Yeah.
It would just get darker and darker and just get more beat in the middle of this target.
Yeah. And to be fair, it almost, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it got to a point where I knew exactly what was going to happen. And that's when I started doing like the 840s and further with that.
Yeah.
Like, not where I would want her hunting with it,
Yeah.
or even myself on a first round shot necessarily. But for your confidence,
Oh yeah.
man, my confidence was through the roof. I think I sent you a picture one day of like, here's cold bore at 965 with this thing.
Yeah.
And it was in the
hammered.
elk lungs, you know?
Yeah.
So like when that's happening, you think about putting a 500 yard shot in the mountains on
Makes
a deer
it
or
easy.
elk, and I mean, easy enough.
Yeah,
Like you have a ton
your
of confidence, right?
is.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, put your confidence like, hey, as long as I don't screw this up,
Yeah.
he's dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So I had that going into the season, which was great. And I've mentioned my wife's elk tag a few times. And so I was kind of trying to cue her up too, because she had a good opportunity. And she's always shot the rifles that I have set up for me very well. So luckily that crosses over. So I got this one feeling as good as I could for me. And the first shot she took behind it, and this is no joke, like totally out of the blue, we were running errands. I had all the stuff in the back of the truck. We pulled over on some state land. I had her build a seated tripod position, and I went out and I put the target at 412 yards. It just happened to be like the amount of terrain we had, and told her what it was, told her to dial, and she center punched that target first shot. And she's like, she looked over and she said, "Can I hunt with this fall?" And I was like, "I hope you do."
Yeah, I think that's kind of funny. It's like, welcome to Justin's household. Hey, we're going shopping today. Oh, by the way, hurry up and shoot.
Yeah. Hurry up and build a position and
Yeah.
take a cold bore shot on a gun you've never shot.
Every day is a training day in Justin's household.
Yeah. It works out good though, like she loves it because that she doesn't get to spend as much time at the range as we do. And so like just that one day she made a couple shots after that, and her confidence was huge after that. And we did it a few more times, and
Yeah.
and
that was so smart of you to make sure, when you're bringing in this new hunter, you want to make sure that anything that could go wrong that they would blame themselves for,
Yep.
even if it's equipment related,
Yep.
you want to make sure that's not happening.
Yeah.
And that was the key, is you already knew that this gun hammered,
Yeah.
so that you weren't giving her something that might have issues, that if that issue popped up where she would blame herself and she'd start losing confidence.
Oh yeah. By all means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was smart.
Yeah. I would do that for anybody I was helping hunt,
Yeah.
whether it was a friend or a client, but you know, that's the most important client in my life, because if that happens, I gotta live with that every day,
Yeah, she's gonna remind you.
So I gotta eliminate all those from anything from her world. So
So ultimately, you ended up getting an antelope. I know that. Did she get an antelope or no?
No,
Okay.
she didn't have time to put into it with all. This summer was pretty crazy, which is why I didn't have as much time in the elk woods during September. But between moving a new house, starting the new job, doing all this stuff, we had a bunch of tags this fall. So we kind of prioritized like her elk tag and then her buck tag.
Yeah.
And so, I did get an antelope, but I only had one day to put into it. Like you and I flew back from Texas. Got back that a Saturday afternoon. I drove Sunday morning about 3 hours to the unit boundary, spent about 2.5 hours finding an antelope and put them on the ground. So
Anything unique or any learning experiences from that shot?
That was, I love antelope hunting. I love eating antelope. I think they're a super cool animal, but I've always kind of categorized my antelope tags as like a little bit more of a fun, like less pressure type hunt, like I put a ton of pressure on myself sometimes to a detriment when it comes to elk and deer. But antelope has always just been like this fun, like, oh, maybe it'll happen, and if you blow
put a day into it, maybe.
If you blow a stock, you find another one. And I think that will change when I draw a tag for a unit where I can kill a monster like you did this year. But like whatever, if you're just looking for a buck or So anyway, get in there. It's an area I never really hunted that part of that unit before. Katie shot a doe antelope on the opposite side of the unit the year before, so I kind of had an idea of where to start looking. But pretty late in the season, so I was good driving down these roads, and the antelope I would see, from 1.5 miles away, they would spook just seeing the truck like come to a stop. So these things at this point in the year, they've already been hunted for almost 3 months between archery and the early rifle and stuff. So I quickly realized it wasn't going to be like just a chip shot. Yeah. And I couldn't even get close to getting out of the truck to start a stock on the first few herds I found. But then I found a herd where I had the wind right and they were kind of bedded in this bowl. And I was like, you know what? I think I can get to these guys. So I got behind the ridge to the north or to the south of them and started working in, and it was super windy.
Yeah.
Like crazy windy, to the point where, you know, I look back even a year ago and I probably wouldn't have even hunted because I wouldn't have had the confidence in making a good wind call.
If you had to put a speed on it, what do you think it was?
I took some measurements and average was right about 20 miles an hour.
Okay.
Yep. And
That's
it
windy.
was, and it wasn't a perfect crosswind. It was coming more from like, you know, probably about a 7 o'clock, 7:30 ish. So knowing where I had last seen them and how the terrain played out, I was basically in an army crawl to get over the hill to look down into where they were at. I didn't really have the opportunity to do some of the cool stuff that you've taught me with like tripods from behind the hill because they were below.
Yeah.
And so I knew I was going to basically be crawling, and I knew that it was going to probably be a pretty quick opportunity. So I had taken a wind call before I crested the hill, and I had already plugged that into my binos.
See, that's a great point.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny, like if you talk to our boss, Aaron, like he's the same thing. Like he's got his wind call in his mind already before he sets up on the gun.
Yeah. I knew the drainage they were in, obviously, but I couldn't even see them when I took that wind call and put it into the binos. But in my mind, I knew it was probably going to play out pretty quick. Like I was going to have a short amount of time because they were feeding up this drainage. And sure enough, I crested the hill to where I could see them and they were feeding up. And I took a range on a doe that the buck was behind. So I was trying to anticipate where he was about to be. And even doing all that ahead of time, I did that a couple times because by the time I'd actually get set and feel comfortable, he would have already surpassed that like spot. And so I would do it again, and I had to pivot a couple times, and then it finally came together. Like, but all that said, I don't think if I wouldn't have had the BR10s and I wouldn't have had all the time calling wind with you the last few months right before that as training, I wouldn't have taken the shot.
Yeah.
Because he was inside 300 yards, the buck was, and I held just about 4 minutes of wind inside 300 yards.
Yeah, that's a lot of wind.
With a cartridge that's going 2,900 feet per second.
That's a lot of wind.
So, like, if you don't have confidence in your equipment and you haven't practiced that, that's not something you should, you know, most people are going to feel comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Myself included. Like, I've held wind before, but never like that.
Yeah.
So,
That's a windy
and
day.
I mean, I high shouldered him and he dropped exactly where he stood, and it worked great. So, yeah, I should thank you for that because you gave me the confidence for that.
That was you just getting out there and shooting.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Luckily, training in Wyoming makes you pretty good at calling wind and shooting in the wind.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about before we talk about my season?
Yeah, I think we should transfer over. I think, you know, there was some highlights in my season. That was a cool one just because it was something that I felt pushed my boundaries a little bit, and, you know, gave me confidence in a scenario where I wouldn't have had it a year earlier.
Yeah.
And then similarly, like using the BR10s as a tool, you know, like I was able to help my wife get a mule deer buck, and it was really cool because I was able to like stay in the glass and he was feeding up the hill. So I'm like watching him, but I'm also like checking range at the same time, but like not losing any confidence, not switching back and forth between like binos and a handheld rangefinder. And so it worked out great. And man, he showed broadside and she put him in the dirt exactly where he stood too. So yeah, that gun had a good year and we had a good year. And then, to follow it up at the very end, I got a cow by myself, and same thing. I kind of went out by myself wanting to put all this stuff to the test. Like I wanted the opportunity to take a shot at a few hundred yards and spot my own impact and do all the stuff again. And I just feel like you learn so much from that. There's obviously a benefit to having a spotter and a buddy, especially when you have an elk on the ground. But like, I really love the solo hunting side of it. But there's just a lot that you have to take into mind to successfully do it solo, and being able to spot your impacts and track the animal in a herd and all that stuff is pretty tricky, honestly.
Oh yeah. It's like, I wouldn't even say it doubles the workload because it starts snowballing.
Yeah.
If you get behind the power curve when you don't have somebody ranging for you.
Yeah. And it was one of those things, like, again, a ton of credit to the range finding binos because they saved me time. They gave me confidence. And then I got in the gun, and when the shot broke, I knew exactly what the outcome was going to be. Like, I felt good about it. I watched it, I heard it, and sure enough, like, she might have made it 23, 24, 25 yards.
Yeah. So over.
Yep. Perfect. And so now the freezer's real full.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. We're looking good.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, you know, as much as I had a good season and learned a lot, I feel like I learned a lot from just the stories that you would come back with. So like, I'm very curious to like pick your brain on, especially like your antelope hunting, man. Like that is, my antelope was just antelope hunting. Your antelope hunting was like antelope hunting on steroids, like most people don't think about doing. So
my antelope hunting was basically, I just got lucky.
I don't know. I think you put the work in and you looked into
I put a little bit of work in, but I found a buck I hadn't found before.
Yeah.
And just happened to get a little lucky and found him. But yeah.
Yeah. I think we should talk about that, because I think, you know, it was a unique location, a pretty unique setup.
Yeah.
There was some unique predators around that most people don't think of when they're hunting antelope.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. Well, you know, basically the way it started is during archery elk season, you know, and I was, you know, hunting the north side of this mountain, you know, up around 10, 11,000 feet, where, you know, the elk could be congregated on the north side in the timber, and the access point was on the south side, and the south side was kind of open and rolling. So I was seeing a lot of antelope up at like 10,000 feet, you know, coming and going. So I was just paying attention and scouting. I actually spent one day chasing them with a bow, you know, but then I decided, you know what, I'd rather chase elk with a bow. And, you know, so I had it in my head that opening day of antelope season, I'm going up there. I expected it to be crowded, and I went up there the night before and slept in the car, and you know, which I was actually kind of glad I had a car to sleep in, because you know, I look up about 1,000 feet above me, and there's 4 grizzly bears up there flipping rocks and looking for moss.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's how high we were. So
that's so crazy.
You know, but what was unique about it is, so this would have been, was it September 20th, I believe, is the rifle opener on antelope. You know, so I've been going up there for about 3 weeks during the archery season already and seeing these herds of antelope. And we had one little storm came through and just put a little bit of snow on top of that mountain, and it had melted off. But when I got up there to actually go hunt antelope, like, the herds were gone.
Yeah.
You know, and I was glassing up these like small to medium sized immature bucks, and there's almost no does.
Yeah.
And I didn't see another single hunter. And I was like, man, you know, pretty much formed the opinion that, you know what, all the antelope have moved down, and if there was a buck big enough to have a harem of does, then he followed him down.
Yep.
And so the only thing left up here is dinks. You know, and I was kind of getting frustrated.
Yeah.
You know, but I was already up there, and it is a long, really slow, bumpy ride to get back down.
Yeah.
And I could actually look down below me, you know, a few thousand feet below me, and see side-by-sides and pickup trucks and hear gunshots and
war zone.
You know, the war zone down there. So I was in no hurry to go back down there. So I was just like, you know, I'm up here. Let me just spend a little more time. So, you know, kind of drove out and kind of low crawled out another ridge, you know, just stopping at every rise and walking up in front and glassing it before I'd, you know, pull up. And I glassed up this buck. And at first look, like, he just didn't look like much. He was kind of short, didn't have much spread. His prongs were kind of low, you know, and I glassed him. I'm like, hey, it looks pretty heavy, but man, he's not that tall. And I took some video of him, and he kind of wandered off over the ridge, you know, so I looked at the video, and then I kind of kept going. And then every time I'd stop, I'd look back at that video, and I literally started comparing that and like pulling up old pictures of antelope. Yeah. And after probably about 10 or 15 minutes, I came to the conclusion that I really need to go find that buck again, because he was just really heavy. Yeah. You know, and it took me a couple hours to find him again, and he'd basically dropped off the ridge and dropped down into this pretty steep canyon. And so I'm on foot, you know, working the edge of it, and I peek over a rim, and he's bedded like 450 yards below me, and he had me pegged. Yeah. Like the moment my head popped over the top, he had me pegged. Yeah. You know, and I think one of the 2 points here, number one is knowing how to shoot standing tripod is really important. You know, most people don't think standing tripod for antelope hunting, but a lot of that broken country, like, you're peaking a ridge, and that's the only option you have. And so from where I was at there, if I would have dropped out of sight, I could have crawled 30 yards and gotten prone. But if I'd have dropped out of sight, he wouldn't have tolerated that. You know, he was nervous, and so I purposely stood up tall and just let him see me, took my pack off. I built my tripod position in front of me, making sure he could see me the whole time. And right when I got my rifle on top of there, he started to get a little nervous and got up and took a couple steps. Yeah. You know, but standing tripod at like 450 yards, you know, using our tripod sling.
That's so cool.
You know, And
I think it's, not to interrupt, but I think it's super cool that you also have the mindset and like animal behavior knowledge to know that if you would have dropped out of sight, he would have been gone.
oh yeah, he would have been gone. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, because most people's first instinct would be to like get out of sight.
The duck. Yeah.
And then there's no way with an antelope that's been pressured, like he's gone.
Yeah.
So,
so even after I shot him, when I was walking up to him,
Yeah.
I still had it in my head. It's like, I either just shot a toad or I just got duped. One of the two.
Yeah.
But fortunately it was a toad.
Yeah.
He scored about 82.
Yeah, when you sent the picture, I don't think I've ever seen a neck and shoulders bigger on an antelope. That thing was a giant.
Yeah, and that was why I had such a hard time judging him, because there was no perspective. He wasn't with a herd.
Yeah.
So everything about him was big.
Yeah.
And he scored 82 with the longest horn being 13 and a half inches.
That's crazy.
That's how heavy he is.
Yeah.
So cool antelope.
I guess they're a little different at 10,000 feet than they are down in the flats.
Yeah, well, that's the same antelope would have been down in the flats in another, couple of weeks probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
he was super cool antelope.
yeah, so I mean, I was just stoked. Because honestly, I've never really put that much effort into antelope hunting.
Yep.
And I can't say I put that much more into it, but I did a bit of scouting and stuff. So I feel like I worked a little bit harder for him.
Yeah.
At least I didn't go out in the afternoon. I went out the night before and slept out there.
Yeah. And you had a good read on the situation and played it perfectly, So I think that, while I think we all want to kill giants, I personally have always been under the mindset of like, if the animal gets you going and the setup gets you going and you can make it come together, then you're going to learn from that. And you're going to get better as a hunter from that.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that for me is always the most important, is like making the setup come together and just making a good shot at the end. So.
Yeah.
So we talked about standing tripod, the use of your sling, which I think is really cool. For anybody that doesn't know, we have a pretty cool sling setup that we go through in the
Level 3.
Yeah, level 3 class to get you like steady on tripod in those scenarios. And it does add a lot. Like it cuts your wobble zone basically in half,
Oh, for sure.
So it's a cool addition. Just gives you that confidence we're always talking about. So you went on from that to go deep on a mule deer too. How'd that all work out?
There's this drainage, and the biggest buck I've seen since I've been in Wyoming was in this drainage. And it was about 4 years ago. I had a late rifle elk tag.
Yep.
Long after the mule deer season was closed, and I'd seen this really nice buck in there. So I've always had it in my head that, this is a drainage I need to backpack into and do some hunting. So I finally did it this year.
Yeah.
And, packed in there. And I got to give a shout out to Mitch Libby, one of our guys, because he went in there with me on the first day.
Yeah.
And for anyone that knows Mitch, Mitch likes his big glass.
Oh, yeah.
And so Mitch, he wasn't staying overnight like I was, but Mitch, packed his big old swirl glass in there. And I owe him for this buck.
Yeah.
Because I glassed up this buck along with a couple does and a smaller buck from, I don't know, probably a mile and a half away.
Yeah.
And I could tell he's a buck from his body.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have told you anything about his antlers.
Yeah.
And Mitch puts the big glass on him. He's like, "Oh, you need to go chase that buck."
Yeah.
So then the snow blew in, kind of blizzard, and we lost sight of him. I couldn't find him again that day.
Yeah.
And so set up camp pretty close to where I'd last seen him, just a couple little ravines away. And next morning, got up and started glassing, and like I was seeing all the same deer kind of in the same location they'd been the day before.
Yeah.
One of was a collared doe, and she was literally like 100 yards where she'd been the day before.
Yeah.
And so literally I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure this buck, that group has got to be in about the same location. And sure enough, they kind of came out the same place I'd seen them the day before. But what was interesting is this is a burn area.
Yeah.
And a lot of that area is like, I call it standing deadfall. It's basically deadfall that hasn't fallen over yet.
Yeah.
And it's thick.
Yeah.
And it's hard to glass through. And when you get down to kind of the bottoms of these ravines, it's really hard to see through. And they're down in the bottom. And so for literally an hour, I'm probably like 500 yards from them. And this ties into what you're talking about with using the BR10 binos as opposed to a separate handheld laser rangefinder, because I was stubbornly still trying to use my handheld laser rangefinder, the BR4, because I was using my 14 power swirls and my bino harness.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to give those up. And so the way it was going was I would find them. I was like, okay, that's the buck. And I'd find him in a glass. And then I'd switch over to laser rangefinder. And I'm like, okay, I got a range. I'd jive on the rifle. oh man, I can't find him. Oh, wait a minute, that's a small buck.
Yeah.
Now I got to sit up. Now let me find him again. This literally went on for like an hour where they would move and I would move and I'd get set up and I'd think I'd be on him, but then, I can't find him. Now I got to get back on the binos.
Yeah.
You know, I really think that had I been running the BR10s, you know, where I could have found him, got a range, like it would have cut my workload in half.
Oh yeah.
You know, I probably would have killed him right there.
Yeah.
You know, but so it happened, you know, after about an hour of this, for some reason they just spooked, you know, and I was kind of like, man, the wind's good. They didn't see me. No way they saw me. So I was kind of baffled on why they spooked.
Yep.
You know, and they didn't tear off, but they just suddenly got motivated to head up the drainage, you know, and kind of out of sight up into the fog. And, you know, I've had a mule deer enough that I've seen them circle back a lot. You know, like they'll circle back and watch their back trail.
Yep.
You know, so I was like, there's a chance he might do it. So no hurt in trying. You know, so I climbed a little higher on my side of the drainage to glass the other side to see if he circled back around on the other side.
Yeah.
You know, and I gave it about, I don't know, 30 or 45 minutes and didn't see anything. So I was like, okay, well, maybe he came up my side. Yeah. You know, so I just started still hunting through the, you know, this standing deadfall timber up my side. And sure enough, I went about a quarter mile up and they'd circled up above and were bedded up there, you know, basically watching their back trail.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I ended up like a 160-yard shot in this thick timber.
That's awesome.
But, no, that was kind of the learning experience from that one. It's like, man, I carry those BR10s in my chest harness now, and I keep those 14 power swirls in the backpack for use on the tripod.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody would agree that seconds matter in a situation like that.
Yeah.
Especially in the timber and like things are moving and you might have a small window to shoot through and a small amount of time to get it done. And yeah, when seconds matter, like efficiency matters. And when you have to find an animal only two times, like in the binos and then in your scope versus in your binos and then a rangefinder and then your scope, like,
oh, it makes a difference.
Yeah, that can be a deal breaker multiple times over.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool you got it done. It's a cool deer too.
Yeah, you know the rest of that story is over the last few years I'm 1 for 3 on getting to eat my whole mule deer.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, the freaking grizzly bears.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this was probably like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I think, when I killed him.
Yeah.
And so it's approaching dark. Actually, before the time changed, so I had a couple hours of light, but 6.5 miles back there.
Yeah.
You know, so I basically decided to take half the deer and just head for the truck. You know, so got out about 9 o'clock that night and went back in the next morning with a good friend, Ian.
Yeah.
And recruited him to help. He kind of owes me. I've helped him with elk a couple times. And he got off easy because, you know, we got in there and about half a mile from where I'd stashed the meat, grizzly tracks hit my tracks in the snow and just like a bloodhound.
That's nuts.
You know, straight to the meat. And it kind of got me thinking, though. So my strategy for next year,
yeah,
you know, and we'll probably do this together because we're going to be hunting some of the same drainages, is we're going to go into the summer. We're going to put up some good meat poles.
Yep.
You know, because I hunt the same areas often enough that if I just had a GPS point on a good meat pole that already had some rope there and already had a pulley there so you could actually hang elk quarters by yourself. Yeah. You know, build a little ladder and lay it down. Yep. You know, I think I'd be so much more successful at recovering stuff because like we lose so much meat to grizzly bears.
Yeah, and it just opens up the possibilities for like where you can actually hunt and shots you can take.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like if you rewind a couple minutes in this conversation for all the listeners, Brian said he was 6.5 miles from the truck where he shot this mule deer, and he's not lying.
Yeah.
He was not on a horse.
Yeah.
This is all on foot with a backpack. So like he's working hard for this animal, and to have a grizzly bear take half his meat is, you know, unfortunate. So
yeah, that was kind of a bummer, but I got a plan for next year.
Yeah.
I think about 3 meat poles I got to erect in 3 different drainages.
See, I love stuff like this because I'm the same way. Like you go out and you had success, but it wasn't like perfect.
Yeah.
Right. Like you didn't get all the meat back. So like your brain automatically goes to what can I do different or better next year? And I'm the same way, man. Like if I go out and I get my butt kicked during a day, like I don't give up. Like I'm going to go back to the truck or back to the tent or wherever I'm sleeping that night, and I'm going to retool and I'm going to go harder the next day because that's just how I'm wired.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like to lose, and I like just want to keep going and you know, it's kind of a numbers game.
Yeah.
If you're willing to put that amount of work in, like, you know, it's going to come together at some point.
Just it's like every, you know, I always just kind of figure you have to have a certain number of close calls before it comes together.
Yeah.
So I always just try to look at every close call that doesn't come together as being one more opportunity closer to the one that is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard when you're, not as experienced to have some of those close calls not pan out. But once you gain more experience, you realize like, even when they don't pan out, there's another one. You just have to work for it.
Oh yeah.
So,
I'll never turn down a opening day, buck just like that antelope.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is a little part of me, especially on mule deer and elk, where you tend to really look forward to it a lot, where if I get something on the first day, I almost feel like I got cheated out a week's worth of hunting.
Yeah.
Because the hunting's fun. Now the work begins.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm self-proclaimed type 2 fun addict because I think about that stuff all year, and I agree. I would definitely not turn down a shot on opening day on an elk or a buck, but I'd also feel like I didn't get to put in all the effort I'd kind of hoped to.
Kind of wanted to.
It,
Yep.
Like we put in the time and train for it and we're ready for it. So it's like you kind of want to see that through sometimes.
Yep.
So, but then you fast forward to like day 17 of the season and you're like,
man, I wish I'd have shot something on the first
shoot a cow
day
right now.
Yeah.
So there's always two sides to everything. So,
one of the other things that I think we're both using a bit this year that's new to us, and it's completely new to me as far as being an option, even though the technology's been around for, I would say, probably a year or two now. And we have it in the BR10 binos, and that's the ability to drop what we call a ray point.
Yep.
Where you basically laser terrain feature, and you drop a ray point that you can look at in either a Revic map or on Onyx.
Yep.
And really started playing with that a lot this year. And I just, after using it a lot, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so successfully, we really started to figure out some of the techniques that really matter.
Yep.
And if I think back a couple of years, there was a lot of concern about like bino harnesses with magnets and stuff in them. And from a ballistic side, I don't think it matters because, like, say a magnet in your bino harness interferes with the compass just by a few degrees. It doesn't matter for your long-range ballistics, that tiny little factor that Coriolis is.
Yep.
However, as soon as you start trying to drop a ray point, meaning that it's got to correctly orientate that compass without any disruption.
Yep.
Like, those little magnets matter.
Yeah.
Because I know with your bino harness you're using, you had a lot of difficulty getting any accuracy out of it.
Yeah. We got it figured out in the end, but yeah, it is a learning curve for stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it's a super useful function of the BR10s though. I look back at, for a long time now, I've used just a handheld rangefinder or whatever rangefinder I had to range the target.
Yep.
So let's say the elk are 1,600 yards away, and then range the ridge in front of them. So let's say they're 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
And then plan your stalk or how you're going to get in there, so ahead of time, like, I can make this happen, and if I can get to that ridge and the elk haven't moved, they're going to be inside 600 yards.
Yep.
So it's kind of a way to give yourself a plan of attack and
Yep.
a little bit of confidence going in that if I get to this point and the elk have not boogered off or done anything, or the wind stays right, like, I can get this done. And we used that on some, couple hunts this year that we were on together for Cal elk, where we ranged up elk and we ranged up a ridge in front of it and we put together a plan and it works out.
Yeah, we had a couple of clients, this very nice couple that hunt cow elk, and they had such a cool experience because, Justin immediately came up with this plan on how to get to these elk. They're a bit over a mile away.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. And,
a mile in a straight line, but definitely not a mile to get there.
Yeah. Not the little route that we had to take to stay out of sight. So he basically lazed them up and said, hey, if we can get to this ridge, they're going to be under 600 yards.
Yep.
And sure enough, about 10 seconds apart, they both killed elk.
They did.
Just under 600 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked out really well.
Yeah. And on the accuracy thing, so basically the things that really affect the accuracy of the, that ray point dropping feature, and I think the same would be true if you're using like Swarovski's version of the same thing, where it can drop a point, is number one is your phone.
Yeah.
Your phone has to be a long ways away from those binos. Like, if I got an option, I'm going to set my phone on the ground.
Yeah.
Opened up to the mapping module, but like set it on the ground, because if it's anywhere around the front of my body, I start seeing errors, and basically you can tell that it's interfering with the binoculars' internal compass, so it's not correctly plotting that where that beam's hitting.
Yeah.
And so the phone's probably the biggest one. So if it's got to be on your body, like, put it in your back pocket.
Yep.
Yeah, if you can't set it on the ground, put it in your back pocket, so your body's shielding those two magnets from each other, or those two compasses from each other. And anything inside a vehicle, like you just got so much metal around you.
Yeah.
Like from the side by side or from the vehicle or standing next to a vehicle, I'd see a lot of error in those, or a bigger error than we should in those ray points.
Yeah.
Power lines, if you're around power lines, that'll create an error.
Yeah, I don't think most people would think about that one.
Yeah, and something as small as if I'm holding my wind meter in my hand, even the most basic wind meter has a magnet in that propeller, and that's how it measures wind speed, by how fast that magnet's spinning. And I can see the difference in that, putting that wind meter in a pocket where that magnet's further away versus holding it in my hand at the same time where they're right next to each other, where it's creating a larger error. So that was one of the big learning things for me, is number one, the benefits of using that, but number two, like the care that you have to take to make sure you're actually getting good at as accurate a ray points as you can possibly get.
Yeah, I think it's like any high-end gear really at this point, like there's a learning curve to all of it.
Yeah.
So you have to know what you're using and how it works so that you build that confidence before you're like in the like heat of the moment and it's game time, and I think that goes back to what you and I do for a living, and it's, you can really never train enough. Like if you really want to be successful and you want to go out there and you want to have a good fall and you want to not have a bunch of drama when you make a bad shot, like you got to train, you got to know your equipment, Like think about all the guys that come in, ladies come through our class. Like there's plenty of very successful hunters, and every one of them walks away like super appreciative for the time they've spent at the range, because they've gained skills, which gives them confidence, and they realize things that even though they've had success and they're pretty good shooters to begin with, that they've like been doing maybe not correctly, and now that they've like corrected that, that's one less thing they have to think about going forward. Yeah,
or if they can just extend their range a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, if you extend your range from 300 yards to 600 yards, that's a huge benefit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're able to take advantage of so many more opportunities.
Yeah.
If you can shoot 600 yards versus 300 yards.
Yeah, I think for anybody trying to hunt out west, that's a very good point, because a lot of these times you want to be on the ridge or drainage across from the animals you're shooting at a lot of times, and most of those are not going to be 200-yard shots. You might get some that are a little over 3, but most of them are probably going to be 350 to 500, something like that. And if you have confidence at that just opens up a lot of doors for shots you can take with confidence.
Yeah, so we started talking about LRU. We're just about ready to get going on 2026 this year. So, for the listeners, coming up the end of January, early February, we've got a couple classes in Texas. Which is down in Lajitas, Texas. It's a golf resort, so bring the family. And they got a really nice range there. The weather's great down there. It's actually one of my favorite places to go, is that southwest Texas, because the mountains down there are so cool. And we'll probably be able to sneak off and do a little bit of outhead hunting ourselves, which really makes me look forward to it. But we got that, and then in March we'll be in California, in Central California. Really nice lodging, beautiful ranch. And then in April, we'll be in Kansas at Buffalo Nichols. So anybody looking for classes, those classes are up on the board. And
filling up quick. And then same with our standard LRU 1, level 2 out in Burlington, and level 3 on the mountain here. You want to take a minute to talk about the new setup that you have for this year?
Great. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So what we're doing this year with level 3 is we're adding a day, not part of level 3, but you can add a day on to level 3 on the Friday. Or even if you've never been to any of our training, you're welcome to come out and try this. I'm calling it the Ruck and Shoot Challenge, with an option for a ride and shoot. And essentially what it is it's 20 stations spread out throughout the mountain. And think like NRL Hunter, but think just a little more realistic in that they're a single target, and a little less pressure on the time, but really focused on getting a first or a second round impact. And just tripod shooting, tricky winds, all these different scenarios that we can come up with up there. And if you choose the ruck and shoot option, it's about 3 miles and about 1,000 feet of vertical. And if you choose the ride and shoot option, it's still about just over a mile, and you'll climb a couple hundred feet of vertical. So 2 different options, and it's just a way to kind of test yourself and test your gear. So this is the day after any level 3 class. So if you come to a level 3 class, then add that Friday. and stay the extra day, and it'll be a lot of fun. And then if someone just wants to come out and test your gear, and even if you've never been to any of our classes or whatever gear you got, come on out and test it. And of course we'll be there, and we'll give you some pointers and help you out a little bit. And I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh, I think it's gonna be great, and it's gonna really, like you said, it's gonna test people and their gear. We just this fall trying to kind of piece this together in our, with our ideas. We've had some guys come through that are very experienced shooters who have never shot at that venue before, and all of them walked away with some eye-opening shots and things that they learned. And so it's a very unique area to shoot in because of the terrain and because of the angles we get to shoot at and because of the way the wind works out there. And so I think anytime you can shoot out there, you're going to learn a lot.
Yeah, it's going to be a great learning experience for everyone. But
yeah, it'll be cool.
Well, I think that's about it. So thanks for joining us, and look forward to...
Yeah, come see us in person in one of our classes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Have a good day.
Yeah.
If you like what you're hearing here, please take a second and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on iTunes or on your favorite podcast app. We appreciate your feedback and suggestions for topics you'd like discussed or questions you want answered on the podcast. You can reach out on Facebook or Instagram or send us an email to podcast@gunwerks.com. Also, be sure and check out our full offering of long-range gear at gunwerks.com. Use promo code LRP for free shipping on any order.